Editing YouTube videos.
All I ever wanted was a brown skin.
See, that's typically where I'd put my intro, but I'm gonna teach you how to do that right now. So let's get started. To start out, I use Adobe Premiere Pro, and then I use Photoshop for thumbnails, and then Lightroom for editing any photos on top of that. The first thing that I do after I finish filming is I drop the footage into my YouTube folder. I have it all labeled out. I like being really organized with my footage, and it just helps my brain when I edit to see like it all organized. So for this specific video, I'm gonna be showing you guys how to edit where I get my beanies. In my folder, as you can see, I've already dropped all the footage here. So I have a folder for Adobe, a folder for audio, footage, Lightroom, screenshots, and thumbnail. That's just how I do it. You can do it completely different. It's totally a personal preference thing. The reason I have my Adobe folder is because when I go into Premiere and I open up a new project, I save everything into Adobe because it does an auto save for like, I don't know, every like half hour or so, I believe it, or maybe less than that, every like 10 minutes or so it auto saves, and it creates another like folder. And I prefer to have that in Adobe, otherwise it would just be scattered all over my specific where I get my beanies folder. So we'll just start out by opening Premiere, and I'll show you guys how I start. Okay, so I'm gonna open up Premiere, hit New Project, select where I get my beanies, go to Adobe and select it. Then title it the same thing. I usually change the title after this, but for now, this just helps my brain. All right, and then I go into my project, double click to import my media, go back to my YouTube folder where I get my beanies, and select footage and import. This usually takes a couple minutes depending on what you're filming in. I always shoot in 4K and then downsize the sequence settings to 1080p by 1920 or 1920 by 1080, and then scale it down to 51%. You can always just film in 1080, and that way you don't have to scale anything down or change the sequence settings. This is definitely just how I do it. I prefer 4K quality over 1080, so yeah. So this just takes a couple minutes, like I said. Now that it's finished importing into our project folder, I double click and I start culling from here. And this is something that I haven't seen a lot of YouTubers do. This is literally the easiest way that I found to cull my footage and to find what's best out of the whole project. A lot of people do it a lot harder. So if you can learn this and just get this down into your workflow, I promise you that it'll be so much easier for you to edit. So I select here and I go to name, so that way it starts from the beginning instead of changing the whole entire, it's like usually mixed up if you don't select it to be properly 1 to 10 and whatnot. That literally didn't make any sense at all. I didn't realize how bad I was at multitasking while I edit until I was editing this video. What I was trying to say is that when you click name, it organizes it for you chronologically. Whereas if you don't click name, it's kind of in whatever order it wants to be. I don't know how it decides it, but anyway, chronologically ordered is what I meant to say. Okay, and then I clicked my first one. So get these hotkeys down. L, I, and O. L is play. So you're playing back the footage. I is you're selecting an in point, and then O is you're selecting an out point. And then you just drag it into your timeline. It's literally that simple. L, play, I, cut in, O, cut out, drag it in. And you do that for every single clip, and it goes by so much faster instead of putting it all in your timeline, then cutting and having to render, and it is like just saves so much time. So I'm probably just gonna fast forward this because I just explained it. So I'll show you what I do right now, and then we'll skip to the next part. And then the rest of the footage is just gonna be a whole compilation of my beanie collection for the intro and for the thumbnail. So because I know that they're all literally 2-second clips, I'm just gonna select from here all the way down, shift here, select all of those into my timeline. And as you can see, it's not even compared to the meat of the video. So I know that this will be really easy. So I'm done culling, which it never turns out like that. It's usually a lot more like tedious of a process. And in this case, it's not, because the video is really simple and I'll be able to edit it faster. So what I typically do from this point is I go through the bulk of the video. I make any cuts that I slipped up on my words. I kind of do a rough cut for the first part. And as I'm cutting it, I kind of have in my brain like what I want the intro to look like. And all my intros are typically between 5 to 10 seconds. I try to not go past that. Sometimes I do, it just depends on kind of like what the intro is gonna look like. I try and get creative with each intro, but a lot of them are still the same because it's kind of like my style. So I'm going to do that, and then I go over and start thinking about how I want the intro to look, and then make cuts towards that. Oftentimes, my intro reflects my thumbnail, and so sometimes I'll even do the intro at the very, very end, knowing what I want in mind, creating it in Photoshop, and then bringing it into my timeline and using that as the intro. It makes it easier when you have it thought out rather than like being confused in what you want to do with your intro. So be thinking about it as you're doing your first rough cut. So let's get started on the rough cut. So this is what my timeline looks like right now. And then when we come back in, it'll look a lot choppier and a lot smaller. Right now I usually look at all the way to out here, and we are at 12 minutes, 37 seconds. So we're gonna try and keep it between 4 to 7 minutes. I'm sure that it'll be less than that. It might even be like a 3-ish minute video because it's just about my beanies. Keep in mind how the timeline looks right now, and then when we check back in, it'll be a lot shorter. So you're trimming up your video. All right, it's been about half an hour. I finished my rough cut of the video. I believe we were at like, what was it, like 13 minutes or something before. We were now down to, we're now down to 4 minutes, 24 seconds. So we've taken a lot out, which is great. So the entire video is probably gonna end up being like 2 minutes, 30 seconds, maybe 3 minutes, which is exactly kind of where I wanted to land with this video specifically, since it's just about beanies. At this point, I usually start color grading, and from there I let it render a full time through. And that way I can be able to edit to the music and edit the intro and whatnot. So let's start the color grade. I just add an adjustment layer. Oh, sorry, before I do that, I have to change the sequence settings. So I go to sequence, settings, and I go 1920 by 1080. And then click OK. And then I know how the GH5 works, and so I start by bringing one clip, bringing one clip to 51. Then I copy, and then I paste it on the rest of the clips. And just select motion. And now we're here. We're at 51 and we're at the proper sequence settings. So the reason I do this is just because it's easier to render. It renders so much quicker, and you can edit faster when it's in a smaller sequence size like 1080 versus 4K. So yep, that's it. Now I'm just gonna paste it on these. So I use Lumetri color. Slap it onto the adjustment layer. I could just go into color. I use my curves first, if it'll go. See, my highlights are pretty high, as you can see on the right side of my face, so I don't need to bring the top of that curve all the way over. And then my midtones look pretty good, maybe a tiny bit warm, so I'm gonna bring it down a little bit cooler. I'll probably do it in the highlights. Pretty good. So that color grade looks pretty good to me. I'm gonna leave it at that. Typically, after I edit it for a while, I'll notice little things that I wanna fix and adjust in the color, and so I'm able to do that later on after I continue editing. So right now I'm just gonna render it a full way through, and then be thinking about how I want the intro and the thumbnail to look, and continue from there. While this is rendering, if your computer is fast enough, you can go into a program that you use to find your music. Epidemic Sound, I've heard, MusicBed, I've used MusicBed, and Thematic. What I like most is Thematic, but it definitely just takes time to try and browse and try and find a good song that matches your video, that matches the style, that matches the tone of it, and then come back and start editing the finer details of it. Okay, good. Now that the video is fully done rendering, we're gonna go ahead and take the next step. It usually takes me a little bit to find a good song that I feel like matches the vibe of the video. I'm gonna go ahead and do that and then bring it into my timeline, and then we'll edit from there. Even if I think I find a song, if I go in and I feel like it doesn't match, it takes me a few tries to find something that I like. Yeah, that's it. I have quite the collection. Let me tell you. I have quite the collection. So this is where I'll put the intro. I've just cut it so I can pull it out and leave a few seconds for the intro. I've just sped it up a bit here, but all I'm doing is I'm just matching up the drop of the song to where I cover the camera to kind of get that good cut for the intro. I typically make my intros like this, where the beat drops and then that's when the intro starts. And I'm just aligning where I cut the song to make the two parts match, bringing it over, aligning it, and then I just keep repeating the process to make sure that it aligns perfectly. And I've just sped it up here because honestly I just keep going through and cutting out other parts of the video that I don't like, and then slimming it down a bit, trimming it, making sure it's exactly where I want it. But I don't like it. But I'm gonna play around with it for a bit and see what I can do. Still don't like it. So at this point, all I'm doing is I'm exporting the part of the video that I filmed that was specifically for the intro and thumbnail. So I'm gonna export that, and then you guys are just gonna have to stick around for part 2 to see how I edit the thumbnail and bring it into the intro. I forgot to mention my workflow for editing YouTube videos, and it's literally just 3 parts. It's the intro, the body, and then the outro. It's not a big deal, but it really breaks it down in my mind so that way I'm not like figuring out or having to do more than I think I need to do when I know that it's simply just the intro, the body, and the outro. And from here, after it's exported, I go in and I take a screenshot of all of the... Sorry, I literally suck at multitasking while I edit. From here, now that that part for the intro and the thumbnail is exported, I go in and I screenshot everything that I want for the thumbnail and the intro.
I doubt it, always thought that I'd taste it. Holla, hallelujah, thank you, Jesus, we gon' make it. Drop, slow, ride through the city with a sweet tooth. I made a left on Sterling, about to see you. Tryna see where this road lead to, so it's only right we playing Nipsey Hustle. Your smile, sunny California, yeah. Lately I've been balancing the highs and the lows. Ask me where it goes, only Lord knows. That's why I stay prayed up daily. Drive me crazy, I can't stay away. Sweet like can't.
Also, just take into account that this is just my workflow, and I know that everyone else does it differently. This is just how I like to do it, and I'd love to just teach you guys what I know. Here's the completed video.
Told my brothers one day we gon' make it. We just gotta grind for that paycheck.
Where do you get your beanies? I hope this video was easy to follow and you could learn a couple things in Premiere that'll hopefully ease up your workflow as you're editing. If you're interested to see how I made that intro, then make sure that you watch part 2 and see how I made the thumbnail. Thank you so much for watching. If you guys enjoyed this video, please make sure to give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe, it really helps me out. And click that notification bell so you don't miss out on any future videos. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time with another new video. Bye.